How are you doing, my baby, huh? It's good to have Daddy back, huh? While most of the northern hemisphere is experiencing heat waves, we are actually in the middle of winter over here in Australia. And on top of the cold weather, I was also on holidays. It was only 8 days, but it was actually the longest holiday I have taken in over 3 years. And I have to say, given how much time I spent with my plants and all of the content that I filmed with my plants, it was kind of really weird to be away from my plants for over a week. And of course from my baby. Are you giving them a show, huh? So today we are checking in on my plants to see how they're coping with winter and to see if I suffered any casualties on the back of my holiday. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I came back from Thailand 2 weeks ago, and over the last 2 weeks I really just did the bare minimum. I watered all of them when I came back, but I was really busy just taking care of content, to be honest. So today I just want to have a bit of a closer look at all of my plants and see what they need, see how they're coping with, first of all, the neglect while I was on holidays, and most importantly with winter, because I think winter is way more of a challenge than being alone for 8 days. The plants weren't really alone because I've got little Bebe over here anyway. I always have a house sitter that takes care of Brad while I'm away. In this instance, I actually didn't go away with my housemate. My housemate was still here, so my housemate took care of Brad, and then I also asked her to help out with plants. Not all of them. I was only gone for 8 days, right? So I really only pointed out a few larger moss poles that I'm worried about drying out over the course of 8 days. I went away during the coldest time of the year, which means less water evaporating, less growth, meaning the plants need less water. So the lowest watering requirement. However, it was actually uncharacteristically dry in June while I was away. We usually would expect around about 200 millimeters of rain in June. This June we only had 20, so way drier than expected, which put a bit of a spanner in the works. And it was also super cold. We went down to 2 degrees, 3 degrees, 3 degrees again, 4 degrees, 4 degrees. So nighttime temperatures are far from perfect. My house has basically zero insulation, so if it's cold outside, it's going to be cold inside, and I wasn't necessarily here to constantly pump the heat. So let's just browse through the house and look at all of the plants and see how they're coping with the cold conditions, right? It's obviously not freezing. It's nothing compared to like a super frosty northern hemisphere winter, but it is certainly suboptimal conditions for tropical plants to thrive, and I would aim for nothing under 16, but my housemate said that at some stage it actually went down to, we have these little things here everywhere. She said at some stage she saw 11 degrees displayed on here. Not happy. And we're also going to go in the garden because they're obviously exposed to even more of all of this. So let's just have a quick browse, and we can start right here. This actually looks super dry. Yeah, I need to water again. It's been dry and cold, so a lot of heating. So actually poles dry out quite a bit in winter. Now this is definitely reaching the top of the moss pole over here, but it's looking so good. The Adansonii also, it's on such a thick moss pole, they don't dry out that quickly, so I had no concerns here. The problem with this plant, it yet again threw out a bunch of inflows where all of this brown is right here. So it really set back the growth again. See, after the inflow, this leaf, now we're finally getting back to a decent size. But I feel like every time this plant starts looking good, it throws out another cycle of inflows that then really stops the growth in the first place, gives the old leaves plenty of time to deteriorate, and then just resets the growth. So yeah, I feel like I am maxing out this plant. And then my Florida, Frosted Heart over here is actually growing so well. Much nicer than the outdoor leaves. So I think it really enjoys it in here in front of the grow light. Do need to do an extension on this soon though. Now these plants on this side only rely on natural light. Let me remove the fly screen, but they're going okay so far. The Gathera isn't really growing much. I mean, it grew a leaf, but these are tiny leaves. But I'm just happy that it's not dormant. And I'm really excited that it threw out so many little pups everywhere, because I can experiment with them and put them in different setups and see what works best. Here, my second oxalis is also doing quite well. The variegated Adansonia is looking so good. This is probably the nicest leaf it has ever grown, but the high variegation definitely deforms it a little bit compared to these more beautiful shaped green leaves, but not complaining. And the Charonia in the background over there is looking really, really nice as well. Over here, the instructions to my housemate was to do absolutely nothing. I just asked her to actually spray, just with a spray bottle, the Mandula, because I'm obviously worried about plants that are reaching the very top of the pole, because the top dries out first. So I don't know if you can hear this, very crunchy up here, while the bottom is moist. There's no crunch whatsoever, right? So the top will always dry out first. Gravity makes water drain down. So I'm only worried about plants that are at the top of the moss poles over the course of 8 days during winter. Now let's focus on the dining area over here. There's actually one change that I made to the dining area before I left. This is the heater, and we have the heater on most of the time. I just have it off now so it's a little more silent, hopefully. Now what happens is hot air rises. So you want to dispense the air low, right? So you want this to blow air down, right? If you get this to blow air up, down here will always be cold. For this to blow down, whatever is in front of it is going to be in the way. And I think this leaf has maybe suffered a little bit as a result of that. But I used to have the Florida Ghost right here. But with these new leaves unfurling, like here at the top, they were kind of right in the vicinity of that hot air coming out, which is not good. So I now chosen a plant that is low enough so that when I turn on the heater and it blows air down, the plant doesn't suffer. I used to always manage this angle manually until I'm happy with it, right? Where it's like, okay, low enough to heat the room, but high enough to not injure the plant. I didn't want to put that extra burden on my housemate. I know I'm like next level pedantic, even to the extent where when there's a new leaf coming out, I manage every single petiole every time so that the leaf unfurls in the direction that I wanted to unfurl and so on, right? When I go away, I obviously don't put that burden on everybody else or whoever looks after my plants. I just ask them to make them survive. But in my head, it means that I'm missing out on so many things. Like with my plant care, I'm not just aiming for survival. I'm aiming for like thriving specimen that look beautiful. So I'm not happy. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm going off topic. I have actually decided to keep it that way. I don't necessarily love this setup. So basically just the Ghost and the Oxalis have swapped places. Don't love this setup because I feel like this is getting a bit too shaded by the Florida Beauty. And over here I see the back of the pole, but it is more functional and I'm happy to go with it. It's probably just another month and a half or so left before we're okay. And then of course I also have the two Soltech Aspect grow lights over here. They're producing such beautiful light. I've actually seen lots and lots of growth over here. Now with these Soltech lights, the biggest challenge is really mounting them. I'm a renter, I'm not allowed to drill anything in the walls, so I couldn't use any of their wall mounts. So I have actually created this kind of makeshift plant stand myself that's looking okay. But there is a better solution, which leads me to today's sponsor, Soltech. Let me introduce the Soltech Stello. Here we go. It comes in white and black, and I've personally chosen the white one with a white Soltech Aspect Generation 2 light. Sorry, had to move it right behind me because it's actually so tall it's hard to fit it in frame. But now you can really see it in comparison to the one that I have created myself. This one is definitely looking a little more professional and sleek. So working much better with my environment, and I'm actually really excited to switch those around. And I reviewed the grow lights themselves last month, and I'll leave a link to the review in the description down below. But let's focus a little bit more on the stand. To me, this is a huge improvement to the offering Soltech has, because previously they only offered wall-mounted solutions, which I mentioned before isn't necessarily suitable to me. So this one is freestanding, so you can easily move it around, and I'm somebody who likes to rearrange all the time. So having a grow light that I can move around to always optimize how I supplement natural light that changes with the seasons is the perfect solution in my opinion, compared to a fixed wall mount mounted solution in the first place. So even if I could mount something into the walls, I would still prefer this because it gives me much more flexibility. Talking about flexibility, it's basically made out of 5 segments. You've got the heavy base and bottom segment first, and then you've got the top segment that actually has the little hook to hold the grow light. And in between you've got 3 segments, which also means that you can leave 1 or 2 segments out if you want to. So the stand is adjustable in height with a maximum of 7.5 foot, which is around about 230 centimeters. But as I mentioned, you can make it shorter if required. The other thing you can play with is how high or how low you actually hang your light. You've got plenty of cable length and you've got really nice integrated cable management. It has a really nice matte finish, is made from premium materials and comes with a 5-year warranty. So it's the perfect solution for any of your Soltech aspects, the generation 1 or 2, but it also fits the Vita pendant kit. Now you guys know at the end of the day, for me, aesthetics is the most important part. So it's not just about having grow lights that produce nice light or make my plants grow nicely. It's also about making sure that the grow light in itself looks good and is part of the design and or distract as little as possible from the plants. So I think this really minimalistic, sleek, white design over here definitely is a step up from a little DIY construction in the back. If you want to learn more about the Stello and Soltech, please check out the link in my description and you can use code JANSTELLO15 for a 15% discount on your Stello, but actually across the whole website. So go ahead and check out Soltech, and thank you Soltech for sponsoring this video. But let's have a look at the plants that are actually growing under my Soltech grow lights, and I'll switch this around later on, because once I switch this around, then I probably also want to switch the plants around, and then I probably also want to switch the pots around, and that can end up being like a 5-hour activity. So let's move through and focus on leaves. Okay, I think I talked enough about the Oxalis and the Florida Ghost already. It is looking good, but yeah, I'm thinking this might shade it a little bit too much. And yeah, this leaf is taking so long to actually expand that I'm thinking it might have gotten a bit damaged by the hot air, because it's already pushing out the next leaf. Yeah. That flickering, by the way, is my frame rate. That's not the grow light. It doesn't flicker in real life. Apart from that, really can't complain about this beautiful Florida beauty. It has never grown that fast for me before. But I don't think it's the perfect plant for this spot, because I think the Florida Beauty would look better with a light source coming from the front. So all of the leaves face this way. I think over here with the Soltechs coming from above, it is the perfect setup for alocasias. And that's actually what I want to do with this corner. I want to turn it into somewhat of an alocasia corner. Or somewhere in my house I want to set up an alocasia corner, but yeah, as I mentioned, that's probably going to take 5 hours and 7 iterations. So let me do that in silence. Over here, this is actually a good setup that works well with that Soltech light, because the plant is kind of just lush from all sides. I'm not aiming to have one specific display site. That's the bottom part of my mandala, and it's growing so nicely. And yeah, I'm not aiming for maturity over here, so this works really well for it. And then I've got my Florida Ghost over here, not super ghosty, but now with the higher light exposure, I feel like we're slowly getting there, right? I should probably not touch it so much, but I love the red petioles. I've definitely noticed that the petioles on both the Beauty and the Ghost have gotten so much redder since I increased the light exposure. Over in the back, the El Salvador, it's also not the setup for it, to be honest. It's just overwintering over here, but again, I would prefer having light coming from the front for this one, but I just don't have that many options, because the lights coming from the front, like over here, obviously feed into the room much more. Alrighty, then over here, oh, I also need to mention how cute is this little hitchhiking Oxalis in my Florida Ghost, so cute. Over here is my Thai. It has done absolutely nothing since this amazing leaf, but I'm also not shocked by that, because we are in winter and it's just relying on natural light over here. But I can definitely see lots of root growth within the pole, which is good news. My Deliciosa is growing a new leaf, but it is not looking that good. and you can see large internodal spacing. It's definitely a plant that grows much better in spring. And over here, my Cuprea is happy as always. It is growing leaves, but they are much smaller than, you can down there as well, much smaller than the summer leaves, but that's okay, it's still growing. I'm happy with that. Like, look at this, it's still a beautiful leaf, just not that big. The only instructions for my housemate over here was that in the same way that I want to keep my moss pods moist, I also want to keep this pile of moss moist over here because I'm air layering this plant for a big chop in spring. In this section over here, all I asked my housemate to do is spray this pole a little bit, halfway through the 8 days that I was gone, and spray this pole a little bit, and spray this pole a little bit, but just with a sprayer. Apart from that, wasn't really concerned about any of the other plants. Over here, we've got my Anthurium medium silver. It's not looking super silver over here, but yeah, it's just overwintering over here. I want to put it back into the greenhouse as soon as spring hits us. And then in the IKEA cabinet, oh, by the way, I asked my housemate to spray this as well, because this is kind of opposite side of the heater, right? So this would get a lot of dry air. And then the IKEA cabinet, I didn't ask my housemate to do anything. I often do nothing in here for 8 days plus anyway. Over here, I'm not too sure what this damage is. I hope it's just mechanical damage and not thrips. I couldn't see any thrips, but thrips seems to be the one I'm struggling with the most. Apart from that, nothing to do really over here. I watered the IKEA cabinet before I left, but have a look at this, which is, I think, a sign that it was just much colder in here than normal. These two leaves, and it's gotten much worse over the 2 weeks that I'm already home. When I first came home, it was just a dot, but now this fungus or this fungal issue is definitely spreading. So what I'm thinking happened over here is that when I watered, something was dripping on these two leaves from some other leaves somewhere else in the cabinet, and then cold water was sitting on here. The temperatures were much cooler because I'm not home heating the house so much, and that caused fungal issues. Cold and wet is always a bad combination. I've never had this happen before, and it hasn't even happened to the highly variegated parts, right? If that would happen to the highly variegated part, I would not be so surprised. So this really makes me think that water was sitting here. This leaf, I think, just dried out a little bit in development because it reaches the top of the moss pole. So that again is something that I feel like could have been prevented by me being here, but I'm just complaining on a really high level now. Now, the most tragic of my losses, let's say, in here was some of the seedlings. I fully forgot that they might need water. So this one completely dried out. This one survived though. And then over here, there was also a variegated one that is just this little piece of brown left over here. So yeah, obviously a really small pot at the very top of the cabinet, right under the light, with airflow coming from here, is drying out much quicker than like a plant down here. So I kind of forgot to ask her to just maybe give them a spray, but you know what? To be really honest, even when I came back, I didn't even notice that for another 2 days either. So kind of my fault as well. I've just become so lazy with the IKEA cabinet because I feel like I hardly ever need to do anything in there because the plants are small, it's a high humidity environment, nothing really ever dries out. So I haven't really put the effort into the plants over there. The conditions are great, but I'm definitely letting them down with my diligence, but so be it, you know, can't complain. All right, let's move through. Alrighty, let's head into the office, and I suppose this is really the room that I was most concerned about. So what I actually did while I was on holidays, and sorry I didn't take a photo, I closed the blinds because the window is the biggest source of cold, right? So I closed the blinds so that less cold air can come in. I had the heater on non-stop, just at 20 degrees. Normally I set it at like 24, because if the heater is set at 24, doesn't actually mean that the room is at 24. Now I'm gonna try and extract the data from this as well, and I'll put it on screen. So I had the heater on, but the heater wasn't rotating either. I just had the heater pointed at the mirror over here so that there is air circulation in the room, but there isn't any direct draft on any of the poles. because obviously it's hot air, it's going to make the poles dry out even more. On a normal day, I like to have it rotating so that all of them get a little bit of airflow. But I was trying to reduce anything that might make them dry out. And the heater is obviously what's going to make them dry out. The heater is going to work overtime if I have the blinds open, hence I closed the blinds. So that hopefully this is kind of a little enclosed environment where the fluctuations are just minimal. Oh, hello! Editing Jan here. I've never done this before, this is weird. Well, I was just talking about the lack of fluctuations and I managed to extract the data from my little reader. And I think on the screenshot I'll put it over here on this side. You can very much see how that 8 days, that period where I was on holidays, there are way less fluctuations than when I come back, right? When I come back, you can see that every night there's a distinct dip. That is, I actually don't know why this is. Because I do kind of still close the blind when I'm at home at nighttime, and then I open it again during the day, so that the plants can get a bit of light. But quite clearly, oh, it's because I closed the door, that's why. Sorry. When I went away, I also closed the door, so the room was kind of closed off, whereas when I'm here, I have the door always open. I suppose that's probably why, and the house in general gets a bit colder at night, and then, anyway. So, quite clearly, bottom line is my strategy of closing the blind, closing the door, having the heater on at just 20 degrees, and just basically keeping all of the conditions pretty, like, stagnating, worked really, really well. And as a result of that, I do think my plants didn't dry out as much as they could have potentially dried out if I wouldn't have done that strategy. But still, you know, probably made like 1 or 2 days difference at the end of the day. I'm still glad that I had my housemate just top them up. I think she said she sprayed them twice, because obviously when you spray the surface of the plants, it's a little bit more work and less effective, but also less risk of overwatering. Anyway, just wanted to show you that actually exactly what I planned on doing worked, and I've got the little graph to show that. I also then put a third one of these grow lights, the one that's normally up in my rescue section, and I put it in the middle over here, and then I turned these plants around so they still get light, and they're also on a timer. So this room was kind of like the most autonomous, let's say. And then on top of that, I used these drip irrigation things that I showed you in the video before I went to Thailand as well. So these first ones did not really work, so I ended up using those. Now the night before I went to Thailand, I set them all up. But now it's already so messy, I do need to... Okay. That was actually less messy than the first attempt. Now obviously this isn't all too full, but that's okay. There's less plant on here that would need all of that water. I mark where the water level is right now, and tomorrow morning before I catch my flight, I will just quickly check to see how much of the bottle has emptied. And if a significant chunk of that bottle has emptied, I will just take it down, because I know it's just going to drain. And right now these plants don't need water. I would love for the bottle to empty over the course of 8 days. So I'm looking for 1/8 of the bottle having gone down by tomorrow. And then in the morning, the water was already down by about 25%. So whatever I set up over here was releasing too fast. So I adjusted it in the morning, 5 a.m. before I flew out. And I adjusted it to release slower. Now I ended up adjusting it so much that it didn't release at all, actually. Is this gonna focus ever? There you go. So it didn't end up releasing at all. So basically I had no self-watering set up over here. I tried, but it was just not reliable enough. And don't worry, I'm going to do a full video on a little more of an automated setup once I've found a solution that I can actually confidently recommend. These ones, not a recommendation at this stage, definitely. So It was good that this was just an experiment and I didn't rely on them. I had my housemate help me out by just spraying the poles a little bit, just from the outside. No water bottle upside down, it's a little bit too much involvement for her. I just had her use a spray bottle and spray the outside of the moss poles, specifically the ones that reach the top. So overall, I've actually not experienced any issues over here. The verrucosum was very, very dehydrated when I came. It was very, very droopy, but I just watered it and it bounced back without actually showing any damage. So in this room, I actually haven't really noticed anything adverse, apart from this one leaf over here, which makes me think the temperatures in this room went down further than expected. This leaf was unfurling, and when leaves unfurl, especially in a high humidity environment, it can easily be that there's water sitting on them, especially on the half that is kind of curled in. And I think the water sitting on it, in combination with cold temperatures, has just produced this cold damage on one side of the leaf. I have never seen damage like that inside, ever. But I reckon it was colder than it's ever been inside. This damage over here in the El Choco was already there. Now let's talk about the El Choco while we're here. In the last video, I showed you how flushing it kind of solved this issue of the thing rotting. It looks so rotten yet again. Look at that. The whole thing is rotten again. So that's what I mean, like the cutter fill doesn't really open properly, and here's then the new cutter fill in there. Now I want to get rid of this juiciness because I don't want it to continuously rot, but this leaf has yet again been aborted. I thought we made progress and I didn't change anything, so maybe this time I can also blame it on the cold, but I don't know. I'm at a loss with this plant. I thought the reason it aborted things was the nutrient provision. Maybe it wasn't. Anyway, I'll get a popper cloth and clean this up in a sec. Yuck. Let me wash my hand. But yeah, I think this issue with the El Choco is not necessarily a direct result of me going to Thailand. As I mentioned in the previous video, I've been battling this issue for months now. Thought I overcame it. Quite clearly the issue's coming back. So I'm no smarter. Yay! But yeah, even like the more finicky ones like this, the titanium for example, is doing well and is even reshooting down here, so it should be all good. This one actually fell when I tried to balance this. And I tried and balance this one, it actually fell. And I can see a little bit of damage kicking in on some of these leaves from that fall now, but that's also okay. Again, not a direct result of my holiday. I think it's just more me trying to balance this thing on there. But yeah, some of these leaves are getting a little yucky. So probably a combination of shitty conditions and the fall. This one's actually doing quite okay. It's pushing out leaves over here. So it took a little while to adjust after taking it out of the cabinet, but yeah. And down here we've got only 2 yellowing leaves that I will cut off in a sec. I'll cut it off later, I don't have a free hand. But we also have new leaves. This one is new. This one is new, so I'm too lazy to turn it around. And this one is new. So we're actually having active growth on this plant. She's looking good, right? And my standing desk is so good. I've had such a blast editing all of the Thailand content on here. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed editing it. Alrighty. So overall, everything worked fine in this room. Nothing to complain about. But outside of the holiday in itself, this is also one of the rooms that I actually heat the most because I just spent the most time in here. And yeah, in general, because I spend the most time in here, I also pay the most attention to things. Oh, also let me quickly point out this leaf. How beautiful is this leaf? Remember in the last video before Thailand, I also said I want this leaf to kind of fill that gap over here. Well, it is now filling this gap over here. It's actually looking so good. I think I need to rearrange again. It's looking a bit messy. I think I need to do something with that El Choco, guys. It's really annoying me. Anyway, let's head upstairs. So the instructions for my housemate while I was in Bangkok was to do absolutely nothing with these plants. I watered them the day before I left and I was only gone for 8 days. Now this room I don't heat, but any heat from upstairs naturally rises And so it's always kind of nice-ish over here. Like you can see, it is about a degree warmer over here than downstairs, for example. And I don't even have the heater on downstairs at the moment. Really, over those 8 days where I was gone, nothing happened. Of course, the lights are on a timer, so the plant got plenty of light. I don't have to rely on natural light for any of these plants anyway. So the blinds were closed to reduce any heat escaping. And yeah, I mean, I think I can see some damage on some of these leaves, but that is not because of negligence because I was in Thailand. I think that is just winter. Specifically the ones that came from the greenhouse that live outside during summer. I feel like they are not coping with winter in here, but it's more about not dying, and then I'll cut them right back and they'll come back in spring. But the ones that kind of always lived here are actually all actively growing. Look at this one. This is, oh, I think it's a crazy rubbish, maybe. This is a Magnificum hybrid growing a new leaf. This Anthurium just pushed out this new leaf. My puppy, the original leaves looking like a little yellow, which could be cold-induced damage. But it's still pushing out a beautiful new leaf. Look how vibrant these veins are. Over here on the luxuriance, I don't know, these yellow bits. I mean, I'm not concerned, I'm not loving it. What are these dots on here? Are you alive or are you just dust? I think it was just dust, okay. I mean, it's going a bit yellow, but of course it is winter, you know, it's not their preferred growing season. I just hope that they make it through winter and give the plant enough energy to, I mean, this leaf is beautiful, to grow more leaves. What's happening here? Another inflow coming, I think. Yeah. The queen has hardened off. It's looking so beautiful. Actually, this one, the Delta Force, has not grown at all since since winter. So yeah, and this one is also a new leaf. So overall, I would say kind of mixed results with the Anthurium. Some are still actively growing, some are just dormant, some are just slowly deteriorating. The thing is, in winter, I do so little for them because I don't have to water them much, because they're obviously less exposed compared to a moss pole, right? All of the media is within the pot. The layer of moss on top kind of helps, stops water from evaporating. The leaves aren't actively growing. They don't hold on to as many leaves as some of my big philodendron downstairs, for example. So they have less watering requirement in the first place, and then less water evaporating as well. So yeah, I still haven't taken them for a thorough watering since I'm back. I've been back for 2 weeks. I've actually just gone in and just poured a little bit of water on top just to keep the moss moist. Actually, I should probably take them out. I've gone back to being lazy quite clearly. Actually, let me not take it out, but have a look at this. This was a plant that I repotted shortly before Thailand. Look at all of these new roots that the plant is sending out from the nodes over here, and then funneled by the moss, and then I want them to go down into the pot. Come on, go into the pot. And this is also growing a beautiful new leaf over here. So sexy. I love this. So red, huh? And they'll become so dark. This is a hybrid I made with a friend, Magnificum and my queen. I think Anthurium's very, very easy, right? I think my biggest problem is always the moss pulse. So, good. Let's go up into my rescue section. Now the rescue section is a bit of a mess. So I also didn't ask my housemate to do anything over here because I don't really know what to ask. You know, like, the plants are too random over here. Their requirements are too random. Even I don't always know what I'm gonna do over here. So nothing happened, but not too bad. Like this plant was very, very droopy, but I watered it and it bounced right back. This one has even grown a new leaf. This one is growing a new leaf. This one is not doing well though, the Anthurium. It dropped all of its leaves. But it has healthy roots at least. This one is growing. Oh, it looks like there might be some pest damage. I might have to have a closer look at the plants up here. Again, I haven't taken them for thorough watering either. I really just came here and quickly watered which is probably not ideal. I think, well, the whole idea was that I've stopped being lazy this year, but after Bangkok I had so much stuff to do, especially on the content front, that was my priority. The Odora Batik is growing a new leaf, a little bit manky, but it is growing. The Jacqueline is growing a new leaf over here, has really healthy roots. These water reservoirs hardly ever dry out, especially with small plants, so not a concern. Diata Papuense is growing nice roots into here, bit of mineral buildup. Look at the root growth over here. My Florida Beauty, the second one, is finally growing after like 4 years. And this is one of my Bellicosums. I chopped it right back and almost between every node, and now I have lots and lots of growth points everywhere. And this one is my Autumn Queen. Again, is this maybe thrips? Yeah, this one is moving. I think it has thrips. Happy days. And here are some seedlings. You can see a few dried ones there at the end, for example. I might have let this dry out a little bit too much while I was gone, but you know, shit happens. And then over here, yeah, thrips. Okay, maybe tomorrow I'll take them all into my bathtub, give them a thorough watering, and then also do a thrips treatment. But yeah, I'm not in a rush, to be honest. Yeah, shit, thrips. Oh my god, can't shake these little huh? It is what it is. Actually, I fully forgot that I have this Pinati Patita there that really needed watering. That was so dry, especially the top cutting was so droopy. I'm actually surprised it bounced back at all, but it is now very, not so slowly, dropping a few leaves. So I actually fully forgot. I should have just asked my housemate to go up and just spray this one a little bit as well, but I forgot about her. What is this? Don't tell me you also have thrips. Sort of damage is that even? I've never seen it that bad. Well, I suppose when I do the treatment, they'll all get the treatment. All of them, including these ones. The Milano is also not going well, I have to say, but I think I also let this dry out too much. It's dry yet again. All the hot air rises, so when we heat, this place gets really, really dry and hot. The Rugosum, however, is kind of loving that treatment. It's growing really well. Sorry, I can't back up much. And this also looks like it has crazy thrips. Yes, thrips, thrips, thrips. Okay. Well, lucky we're filming this video, no? Otherwise it could have taken me another week to discover. Alright, that's going to be on the agenda tomorrow, maybe. And over here it is my Veitchii. Well, let me guess, it probably also has thrips soon. Anyway. Now the main casualty I think over here was really this one, but this one wasn't even in the attic. So this one is my Serpens, and I extended it the day before I went and repotted into a bigger pot, just so the pole doesn't dry out. But I took it outside to water it, and then I forgot about it outside. So it was outside the whole time I was in Thailand, and we had, as I mentioned earlier, the 2, 3 and 4 degree nights. And when I came back, all of the leaves just gradually started getting really, really yellow. So I chopped them all off, and now I'm waiting for reshoots. I have also not chopped between the nodes just yet, because I feel like the plant has gone through enough for now. Let her recover. But yeah, this was probably the biggest casualty of my holiday. And obviously if I would have been here, I would have noticed that I forgot it outside. But because I wasn't here, I didn't notice. And I think my housemate just thought it might have been on purpose. You know what? I'll leave the thrip infested leaves up here, so they don't come down with me. And oh no, this looks a little bad. These water propagations. That's okay. You know what? I will investigate tomorrow, and I'll take them all, and then I can also kind of clean the area over here a little bit. But look, it's a rescue section, you know. Please ignore all of the mess left, right and center. I think overall it's fine. Like, I can't complain. At least they're somewhat alive, you know. The idea here is to keep them alive over winter, and then hopefully they're going to have a good growing season in spring. But let's head back downstairs. Alrighty, and let's quickly check out the garden as well, but I don't want to spend too much time out there because the neighbors, different neighbors now, because, well, once one construction ends, the other must start. They're building a new fence. So it's kind of loud out there, but let's have a really quick browse anyway. Obviously out there I didn't do anything, I didn't ask my housemate to do anything, but it was very dry, which I didn't anticipate. Last winter it was so rainy that I didn't manually water my plants all of last winter. This winter I have already watered 2 or 3 times manually, and we're only halfway through winter. So it's much drier this year. So I should have probably asked my housemate to water a little bit out there, but then cold and wet is also a really bad combination. I don't want her to water and then it goes down to 2 degrees and so on. So I feel like it required a little bit more nuance that I didn't necessarily want to put on somebody else. But anyway, let me put on shoes. Yep, the really ugly green ones. Sorry guys, it's gonna be loud. Okay, it's super annoying, but they might never stop. Let me have a look at here. The Adansonii, definitely you can see the plant going a little bit yellow, specifically towards the bottom. But it is the first year for this plant out here. I'm not too sure if it can handle the cold temperatures. The Deliciosa should be fine, and so far so good. But definitely these leaves that are unfurling for months now, right? So yeah, and existing variegation going bad. My Siltepecana is looking really bad, much worse than any of the other plant, which is weird because this plant already survived out here last year. But then it made me think that, you know what, all of these yellow leaves are probably leaves that have now already survived over a year. So they were already here last winter, because most of the new growth just escapes everywhere and I end up cutting it off. I think I need to get better at redirecting the growth back onto the pole, because the pole in itself, all of the leaves on the pole, are now just really old. Plus, I think it might have dried out a little bit too much. I don't think this is necessarily cold induced. Dubia, however, I think this is cold induced for sure. It's not happy. El Salvador seems to be happy, still growing, not finding the pole though, but that's okay. I'm happy for it to go wild. Epipremnum pinnatum, still going okay. And really sad, I feel like my Syngonium Styamachii, the one I kind of like the most, is definitely showing cold damage. Look at that, that is not good. These leaves are going to go yellow and yellow and yellower. And this new leaf has now been unfurling for over 5 weeks. So yeah, I think it's well and truly stunted. But the Deliciosa Brazil form is going amazing. Over here in the rest of the garden, I actually haven't really discovered any casualties, like at all. Even the crawlers are still there. So I'm surprised, but yeah, I think it might take a little while longer for all the cold damage to really kick in. Same over here, the Syngonium Mojito is still going fine, the Fermatophyllum is going fine. The bromeliads are actually going really well, because they're getting lots and lots of sun and they don't seem to mind the cold. Let's have a quick look at the greenhouse. It's doing okay. Obviously no growth. A few older leaves are going yellow, cold damage. But nothing like shocking, right, in here. I mean, again, this is a new leaf that has been a new leaf for months now. It's just not really doing anything. But as long as it's not dying, it's fine. Okay, not bad. Oh, this Adansonii is, I think, dead. Oopsie. But not too much to update you on in here. Sadness, 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 my banana. The problem with the banana is I don't even think they're cold. I think the problem with the banana is really just it's so exposed. Look at that. We had a crazy storm 3 days ago. It was like cyclone warnings. People were sent home from work. It wasn't that bad, but it was definitely stormy. And these leaves are just so exposed and kind of finicky, right? If this snaps, then the whole leaf is messed up. Like, so I have a few, it's all just mechanical damage from the wind, but I just don't know how to shelter this plant because she's so big, right? And on top of that, we also get some older leaves and cold damage. So, and this new leaf over here has also been kind of stuck in development for weeks now. So it's not really like unfurling in the rate that it should. So anyway, it grows so fast during spring, so I'm confident it can make a good recovery. So overall, I have to say, the garden is looking super, super lush still, right? Like really can't complain. But if you're looking a little bit closer, there are early signs of cold damage. And I wonder how much of that cold damage we'll realize before we're heading back into spring. But let's go back inside because despite it looking sunny, hey, Bradley. Okay, you can play in the garden a bit, yeah? Bradley, I'm gonna go back inside because it's too loud. Okay, we're keeping him out there. So, overall, not too bad. I think the plants are coping fine with winter, specifically indoors. I mean, look, indoors, the only challenge is really that during nighttime, the temperatures dip a little bit. During daytime, due to heating, the air dries out a little bit, but I just need to stay on top of my watering. If I'm here, not a problem at all, but it is a little bit, hang on, the baby. Bradley, I can see you. Hey, he thinks because the door's closed, I can't see him. Bloody hell. Look, if I'm here, I'm happy to put in the work, but it's just highly volatile, let's say, right? Because I can't necessarily anticipate this winter's requirements based on last winter, because last winter it was much wetter, for example, so way less watering requirements because humidity is through the roof all the time. This year it was really dry. So it is something that I always assess and then act accordingly. So it's kind of hard to anticipate requirements and then communicate that to somebody who doesn't necessarily have the nuance to decide in the day. Like if I tell my housemate do exactly that, that's exactly what she's going to do. She's not going to assess whether or not that action is going to be appropriate at the time or not. So that is, where friends like Timmy become really invaluable, because even if I would ask him to do something, he would still have enough knowledge to kind of question whether or not that's actually the right thing to do, right? So if you have a friend like that, invaluable. But I can also understand that not everybody even has a housemate or any friends that can help them up with plant care. So I am also working on a video where I'm testing different setups and so on to find some level of automation that could be useful for people that don't have a house sitter or a housemate, but want to go on holidays. Now, of course, also keep in mind, for me, it's like another level of importance. It's not just my hobby plants. My plants are also my business. So if I go on a holiday and I come back and all of my plants are dead, it's probably just like one good video, and then after that I have nothing to publish and my business is slowly dying. So, there's extra pressure on me when I go away because I obviously don't want my business to die on the back of a holiday. But definitely sometimes I'm just like, oh, I wish I would have less plants so that when I go on holidays, it's not such a big deal. But then you know what? Holidays are the minority of life, like most of the time I'm not on holidays. So I'm gonna set up my life and my house the way that it works for me most of the time. And then I just hope for the best in those few rare moments when I get to go on a holiday. But also, it's plant care. You can just grow them back. So I'm not stressed about it, but it is definitely a slight source of anxiety. But to be honest, while I was in Thailand, I actually completely switched off from it. So I wasn't sitting in Thailand worried. It was just really when I started flying back, I was like, oh, I wonder what my plants look like. I forgot I have all of them. Anyway, bottom line, it's all good. I'm really just, complaining on a really high level, like, oh, I wish I could have directed this petiole a little bit earlier, or oh, I wish I could have watered this so that the leaf in development doesn't have this teeny tiny deformation, or like, what I mean, like nothing bad. I think I really need to wrap it up. I kind of missed filming, guys, so I can't shut up now. It was good. I haven't filmed in so long, like just a normal video, just me and the camera in my house, so I kind of missed it. But don't worry, there's plenty more to come. But goodbye for now. Thank you again, Soltech, for providing me with my beautiful new plant stand and light. Again, everything is linked in the description if you want to check them out, and I can't wait to incorporate that into my collection. Make sure to give the video a thumbs up, leave a nice comment and subscribe if you haven't already, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye!